Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome to you. We would like to wish everyone a good morning, a good afternoon, or a good evening, depending on where you are in the world. My name is Samantha from Safeopedia, and here at Safeopedia, it is our mission to support the EHS professionals, operational folks, and any safety-minded individuals with free safety information, tools, and education. Just a reminder, this webinar is being recorded, and we will send out a link to the recording as well as the presentation slide decks to everyone in a few days. This webinar is for you, the audience, so let's keep it interactive. We're going to be fielding questions throughout the webinar today, as well as a live Q&A at the end. So make sure you get your questions and your comments into the GoToWebinar console on the side. Today, we are proud to present Improving Safety in the Construction Industry. This Safeopedia webinar has been sponsored by Certainty Software. It is now my pleasure to introduce to you today's presenters, Desiree Ropel, Jordan Rodier, and Steve Millard. Steve is the Safety Director at Anson Industries, or Anning Johnson Company. Stephen began his career in their apprenticeship program and filled a range of roles, including journeyman, foreman, field superintendent, and construction manager, working on major projects in Los Angeles and Las Vegas. Steve has been working with Anson Industries, Anning Johnson, for almost 40 years, the last 16 as safety director. Steve has teaching credentials from the University of San Diego and has been a proud member of Ironworkers Local 433 in Los Angeles since May of 1989. Desiree Ropel is the safety manager at Hermanson and has been in the construction industry for over 10 years. Previously the safety coordinator with general contractor, Desiree has now been the safety manager at Hermanson for the past 5 years. She has a bachelor's in law, society, and justice from the University of Washington and a master's in forensic psychology from Argosy University. Prior to her career in safety management, Desiree was a commissioned officer in the United States Navy and was stationed on an amphibious warship and a destroyer where she completed 3.5 deployments, 2 of them in the Middle East. Jordan is the Director of Business Development, and his experience is sometimes described as a mix of tablets and tool belts. He began his career working in the construction industry and transitioned to technology, where he now helps implement practical solutions to complex business challenges. I am very grateful to have you all sit back, relax, and enjoy this presentation. With that, Desiree, Steve, and Jordan, please take it away.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for everyone for tuning in and listening to us. As myself and Steve kind of walk through these next 6, 7 sets of questions, we're really answering based on our kind of personal experiences, realizing there's no right answer or no one answer to any kind of situation, and that we hope that you can take a little bit of the knowledge that we've learned and potentially apply it to the things in the company that you guys are a part of. So our first question, some things to consider when improving a safety in construction. First bullet, please. It has to make sense and be relevant. So I come from a mechanical background with HVAC, piping, plumbing. So something that I've done is I took the past 20 years worth of incidences and kind of graphed what were the most types of injuries we occurred and what types of body parts those that were injured. And for us, by far, lacerations and lacerations to the hands and fingers were the most type of incident and body part that was injured in our history. So some of the things that we are doing is we're looking at our knife policies, what different types of knives, blades that can be used to kind of reduce some of those cuts, those lacerations, some of the new technology with retractable blades, with ceramic blades that can kind of field test and then kind of get the crews buy-in and essentially change policy. And some other considerations are PPE. What type of PPE are you using? Here at Hermanson, we're already at a cut level 4, cut level 5 with our gloves. We're also using Kevlar sleeves anytime we do any kind of demo as well. Next bullet point, please. Recognition of hazards. So for us, this is something we kind of found, you know, on a regular daily basis. You know, we have a wide variety of people who are in the trade. Some of them it's their first day, some of them have been here for 30 plus years. And it's getting them to realize that something is just as dangerous day one as it is day 20. A porterman will still cut you day one as an apprentice as it will 20 years as a journeyman. So it's kind of the mindset of always kind of keeping those hazards fresh and not being used to them. Next bullet point, please. And that kind of ties into complacency, right? You know, you have people that grow up in the trades, they've done this their whole life, and they kind of become blind to the hazards. You know, something that they were scared of on day one, necessarily they're not scared of anymore, and so they don't necessarily think that it's hazardous, it's dangerous, and sometimes it's about how this is how they've always done something, and it's really about developing those relationships with your seasoned journeymen, your veterans, and what that does, it allows you to have those conversations that leads into training, because they've been in for so long, they potentially only know one way. So it's educating people on, hey, did you know this new piece of equipment came out? Did you know that we do it like this now? And a good example of that is, you know, when they changed some of the rigging standards, you know, with shackles, you used to tighten them all the way up and back it off a quarter turn. Well, now you tighten it up all the way again. A story, when I first got here to Hermanson, I was working with one of the senior foremen who've been in the trades probably 20 plus years. We were up on a rooftop looking at some fall protection. How are we going to get stuff in through the hole? And I turned to him and I said, you know, you have your leading edge lanyards. And he kind of looked at me and he's like, leading edge, what's that? And it was just simply because he had been used to doing something using the same piece of equipment for the past 20 years that he didn't know that something new and something better had come out. And so one thing that we did was we went away with all of our 30-foot leading our 30-foot SRLs that weren't leading edge. So your only option here at Hermanson is a leading edge SRL. So at this point, I'll hand it over to Steve. If there's anything you want to add, I'll let you continue with the bullet points.
Thank you. I'd also like to thank everybody for attending today. And again, kind of piggybacking off what Desiree said, we don't have all the answers, but through some of the experience we've had, hopefully we can help you. Maybe just give you some points to think about a little bit, especially people that are new to safety. We hire interns every year. We try and help educate them, and especially during this time of COVID, a lot of these kids are unable to get out to construction sites and actually see how work is being performed. So when they come to work for us, it's like starting day one. So we have to go through a lot of the items that we're talking about today with them, so they can be educated on this. So like I said, these are just some thoughts that we have. Hopefully you're able to use some of these. I would like to go back quickly to what Desiree was just talking about, veterans in the trade. Being an iron worker myself and having taught iron workers for a number of years, that's, you know, some of you would, if you work with iron workers, have to agree they're some of the toughest guys and girls to have to get your message across to. That's always a challenge with us, although it has gotten better over the years. So as a company, we have been dedicated to providing a very safe work environment for our people. And so fall protection is a huge issue, obviously, for our iron workers and everything. And again, back to what you said about doing things the same way forever. Anybody that's familiar with iron workers, you see them choke a load, and they would always hit the choker with a sleever bar or a spud to make sure it was tight. Well, when we were doing rigging training, we found out that that's the worst thing you could possibly do to a choker. So now we had to re-educate our iron workers not to do that. So that's one of the small things that they've always done forever. I did it when I was out there in the field and realized and was taught that that was a bad thing to do. So it just kind of goes along with what she was saying. So if we could get to the next point, I think there we go. What's the goal of new initiatives, policy updates, changes to policies? I think everyone would agree that the goal there is to improve the work experience for all employees. Our company has a simple statement, and that is to make sure everyone goes home the same way they came to work in the morning. And that's the very simple guide that we use anytime we are putting together any policies, safe work practices, anything like that. The employees come first, and then we work off of that. Of course, you always have to align with the most updated OSHA and ANSI policies and updates. New tools you have to take into consideration on how you're going to use those safely and develop plans. One thing we never do is just create a policy, throw it against the wall, and see if it sticks. It has to have value, and number one value is safety. Production, of course, money and all that is always considered, but that's a secondary thing we think about. It always has to be, how are we going to benefit that employee and make his experience with us better? Bear with me here. Can we go to the next bullet point, please? Are you being proactive or reactive? I think we all know that if we've had an accident or incident on our job, it's too late to be proactive. At that point, we have to be reactive, and that means spending time and money doing root cause reports, accident investigations, and whatnot. That can be very time consuming and, of course, very expensive in some cases. So we always want to be proactive. One thing I did when I came to work in the position I'm in now is I always wanted to be a step ahead of everybody else. And I've tried to take that with me since day one. For instance, our fall protection program, I think has gone really well. We were ahead of the curve for most people. We developed our own digital fall protection plan that self-calculates. We have that our guys and girls are able to use. It's really a pretty cool product. But like I said, we want to be a step ahead. So we've invested a lot of time and money in that. One thing about being proactive too is, just to give you an idea, we have 100% hearing protection policy. And like anything else, when we rolled that out, everybody fought it. The reason we did that was we followed OSHA for the longest time, where if you were at 85 decibels, beyond that, you had to wear hearing protection. I would go on jobs, projects where our guys were, say, screwing drywall off inside a tiny room. Decibels were 85, and they wanted to sit and argue with me about hearing protection and why they didn't need it. They weren't at 85 decibels. So we did that. It created a lot of problems, a lot of hesitancy out there because people couldn't understand why it was needed. So there was a huge educational curve that we had to get through. And now we go on all our jobs, everybody's wearing hearing protection 100% of the time as soon as they walk in the gate. Same thing with gloves, sleeves, glasses, all of that stuff. So could we go to the next slide, please, or next bullet point, please? One size fits all. I'm sure everyone out there probably realizes that you can't always have policies that will address everybody at the same time. Sometimes you have to detail or fine tune those policies. At Anson, we have several different trades that we deal with: ironworkers, drywallers, roofers, finishers. So a lot of times we will have a very broad policy, but then we also have to detail those out for those particular trades because they all do things a little bit differently. So it all goes back to making sure that whatever policies we put in place are going to work for those employees and also that trade. So I guess with that, I will throw it back to Desiree.
Perfect. Next slide, please. All right, so some of the things that need to be effective instruction with the safety program include, first bullet point, buy-in from all people involved. It's less about the words on the page and mostly about the buy-in from the people, right? So your program could be all-encompassing, but if it's not followed, if it's not enforced, if people don't know about it, all just a whole bunch of pretty words on a pretty page. In order to be effective, you have to set standards, you have to educate on what those standards are, and you have to uphold them if they aren't followed. And you also have to be able to give your leaders, your foremen, the power or the empowerment to uphold those standards and give them the sense of, what's the right word, the sense of that they not necessarily have control, but they're the ones that sets the standards, and they're the ones that how their crews, how they want them to do things. An example of kind of like what Steve said, 100% glove policy. We also have that across our company. And that kind of leads into the next bullet point, please, with consistency. Right, you have to have consistency across all jobs, across all leadership. So you can't have one person lead a job and do things one way, and then have another foreman or leader on a different job do things a different way. Because when your crews are going from job to job, the standard isn't there. They don't know what to follow, what to do. And so when you set your standards and you have them across the board, it doesn't matter what job site you're on. If you're a Hermanson employee, you know that you're expected to do these things no matter what job you're on, no matter what foreman you are under. And that also applies to excuse me, that also applies to leadership. Whether it's the CEO or the president stepping on site, they have their 100% PPE on as well, because that also sends a message, right? It's not just about the crews in the field, it's also about the leadership, the management, and the people in the office, because we're one team, one family. There are no exceptions based on who you are or what title that you hold. Next slide, next bullet point, please. And that kind of goes in to buy-in from leadership, right? Nobody talks about safety when nobody's hurt. It's when somebody gets hurt that everybody wants to know what happened, why it happened, what are we doing to prevent it? And some of that is education, right? A lot of people aren't informed or don't know that when an injury occurs, there's a lot more that gets impacted than just the individual that gets hurt. And by all means, you take care of the individual first and foremost. There's lots of things that go into that impact you financially, right? If the person's on KOS, how does that affect your EMR and your ability to bid work in the future? And it's some of those things, education with the upper management and the upper leadership, that helps with the buy-in, because they know obviously nobody wants anybody to get hurt, but also there's a financial impact that happens when somebody does get hurt. Steve?
Okay, great points, Desiree. I just want to throw a little story out there about buy-in from leadership, and in this sense, leadership, I'm talking about our foreman staff with our metal decking division. We actually had a manager come into a meeting one time and threaten to shut the whole division down if we didn't start utilizing fall arrest equipment properly. You get people's attention that way, and I think that was the day that our ironworkers' opinion of fall arrest and using it changed. So unfortunately, sometimes you have to go out there and use threatening language to get people to change. I wish it wasn't so, but it does happen sometimes. So sometimes common sense is involved. In most cases it is, but other times we have to do things a little more extreme. So whenever we are looking at adding policies, changing policies, can we go ahead and go to the next bullet point? Sorry. So solicit comment feedback. So that's one of the things we do extensively whenever we're going to start adding policies or anything to our guidelines. Have we included the executives? What's their thought on it? Management, our district managers, construction managers, are they okay with policy changes? Do they see anything we need to detail with that? How about supervision in the field? And then ultimately field personnel themselves, the boots on the ground. We will go out to the job sites and actually discuss potential changes we're making to policies and get opinions from our field people. And sometimes that will really change the way we're going to approach putting a policy in place. Or there may be a case where we say, you know what, we're going to wait. We're going to wait on this policy because it's not going to work right now. It won't be accepted. And there's not that big of an advantage to it right now. So Case in point, we are transitioning to the new climber style hard hats. Again, with ironworkers, you can imagine how tough that sell is and will be, because ironworkers are still wearing 30-year-old bullers out there with all of their stickers. Those are trophies that they wear on their heads. I still have mine. I'll never get rid of it, but we're transitioning to those new style helmets because of the chin straps, and we actually had a couple of injuries, like head injuries last year, because helmet or hard hats fell off. So again, we're out there. We have a policy in place to transition to that, but rather than just saying this is a cutoff date, everybody has to switch over, we're going to phase those in over the next year, 2022. So, and that was due to soliciting the field, getting comments and everything, and that way we were able to get better buy-in. So the other thing too is, let's see, let's go ahead and go to the next bullet point, please. Honest and accurate reporting. You know, I'm a big proponent of certainty. We've been using the certainty product for our inspection reports for a number of years now. It's worked out really well for us. But again, the information in that report has to be honest and accurate and detailed. And if you don't get that, then that data that's in there is basically going to be unusable. And admittedly, we have an issue with a lot of our field personnel. And I think this is common across the board. You have, say, foremen, for instance, that are checking the box every week. Yes, I did my inspection. And then when you go in and look at it, it's really not what it should be. You know, there's 100% all across the board every week, and that's just not the case. So it's hard for us to pull accurate data. When you have safety personnel whose role it is to do detailed inspections, I can get a lot better data from them. So that part works out. So it's an ongoing battle with field personnel. It's getting better, but it's something that we always have to continue addressing. Can we go to the next bullet point, please? Measuring your success. A lot of different ways to do this. In our case, a typical indicator is incident rate. For us, we have a monthly incident report that comes out, and then I send this report out with some comments addressing any issues, trends, things like that, to all of our districts across the country. So we look at the incident rates. Those are a quick and dirty way to see how you did month to month, year to year. Your EMR, of course, that's a lagging indicator. It's 3 years. So that is something. That's a lot what your customers are going to be looking at that, and based on that, you may or may not be able to bid on a project. So obviously, we want to keep that low. Lack of recordable injuries, days away from work, etc. I'm sure everybody's familiar with that. So those are typical indicators that we use day to day. We can dig a little bit deeper, but quickly, those are the things that I and my team look at to get kind of an instant view of what's happening out there. Digging deeper. Do we have is that the last bullet point on that slide, Jordan? I'm sorry.
Yes, it is.
I think it is. Okay, so I had another comment, and that was digging deeper. And this is something I'm always concerned with. Are employees generally happy with the safety program and understand it's there for them? When we're doing inspections and audits and interviews out in the field, that's something I want to find out, because if our employees don't feel that safety program is working for them, there's no buy-in, they aren't going to perform at their best. We're going to see accidents go up because people are disregarding policies, safe work procedures. So it's very important to me and my team, and the rest of our company as well. And how do your customers view the safety program? I know from time to time, we send out questionnaires to our customers and ask about productivity, you know, the time we spend on the job site, the safety performance, all that kind of thing. And of course, we want high marks in that, but we also want people to be honest about it. And then finally, are you a burden or an asset? So I never want to hear we're a burden on a job site. Most of the time we get very good comments, but I think everyone agrees. Some companies don't stress safety like others, and in a lot of cases, safety isn't appreciated as much from one place to another. So, regardless, we're trying to win everybody over on every job. So, Desiree.
No, that was great. I don't have any more to add to that, and on to the next slide. And I believe you start this one off, Steve.
Well, there we go. Okay. So how does leadership style affect safety performance? We set the example. Again, this is big for me. Always has been. I remember, back in the day, watching management or executives come out to our job sites and basically calling them suits. The suits are on the job, or eagle on the deck. And it was, let's make sure we're doing everything right until they leave, and then we can go back to what we were doing before. So once we started really getting our safety program developed, we asked everyone in the company if they were going to visit a job, and this is CEO all the way down. I'm anybody. You go out to that job site, you're going to follow the same rules that everybody else does on that job site. So anyone visiting a job site now, again, is, of course, hard hat, safety glasses, hearing protection, gloves, sleeves as needed, that kind of thing. So, and I think that's paid dividends. And anybody out there that's created that kind of policy, I'm sure you've seen the benefits. So, we also hold management accountable. And we ask field personnel, foremen, if you have management come out to your job site and they, for whatever reason, refuse to do what they're supposed to do, we want to hear about it. And we will place a phone call and, again, hold them accountable. I'm very fortunate in that I have a great working relationship with our executive team. If I were to have a problem, which I don't, have a problem that I couldn't handle on my level, I could reach out to our CEO at any time and he will basically set things straight. And that's the way it's always been. And of course, I'm very appreciative for that. I think it's really helped make our program successful. Next bullet point. Reach employees at their level. And I always say, I hate the word level. I was trying to think of another term, but I've always told my team and anybody in safety, never look at yourself as being above anybody on that job site. You should consider yourself a resource, and that's it. You should develop a good relationship with those people. They should be able to reach out to you at any time, know that they're going to be able to get you and you're going to help them. So one of the things I look for whenever I'm hiring safety personnel is people skills. That's number one. I don't care if you have a master's degree in safety science. I don't care if you have 40 years of construction experience. If you don't have people skills, you're not going to be successful. And some people aren't blessed with natural skills, so they have to work on it, but it can be done. But again, it's paramount to being successful. A lot of times I found that humor will help break the ice. These days, you have to be very careful. You have to style your interaction with people a certain way. Sometimes you have to be very, very careful. So again, it goes back to people skills. Are you able to read that person that you're talking to and be able to break the ice, make them comfortable without creating any issues? So that's something we're always working on. We also want to know what their concerns are. That's something, when I go up and talk to somebody, I will ask them, how are we doing for you? Could we do something better? And hopefully they've got some comments. I think a lot of times you go up to an individual and they're a little intimidated, unfortunately, until they get to know you. So you're not really getting an honest answer. So I keep pushing until I'm able to break through and get an honest answer out of them. Because almost everybody's going to have an opinion on something they don't like out there. So what can we do as a company to help them perform their tasks safely? Is there a better way? That's all part of that conversation. And again, one of the things I do along with humor is a simple thing like a fist bump, a handshake, a pat on the back, an elbow bump, whatever it is. I always try and leave whoever I'm talking to with something like that. To me, it's worked and seems to go a long way. So I always try and get a laugh or a smile from them before I leave, thank them for everything, and then I'm on my way. Next bullet point, please, Jordan. So this kind of comes into the whole safety cop versus safety resource thing. I've told my team, and anybody I come in contact with, I hate that term safety cop. Um, when our program was in its infancy, I feel we did have some of that going on, and I was bound and determined once I got involved that I was going to get rid of that term. Absolutely hate it. So we went from safety cop to safety resource. And that's a term I use all the time with our team, district safety personnel, whoever it might be. So I wanted to make sure that whoever needed something could get a hold of either me or my team at any time. And there are times I get calls 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night. Somebody wants to talk something over and my phone's on 24/7. So I think it's kind of a big thing. And I think it's helped make us successful too. So everybody knows safety cop is going to be ineffective, going to be ignored, and is going to be avoided. I know, again, when I first started performing the safety role, I had people kind of scatter when I would get up on a work floor. They didn't know me. They didn't know how I approached business. And then once that got a little bit better, I would have people come up to me and start talking to me and everything. So that was kind of a measure of success for me. I talked about the phone calls. That's another measure of success for me. If people are willing to pick up the phone or text or email me, I know I'm available and that they look at me as a resource. So that's a good thing in my book. I think with that, I'll turn it back over to Desiree.
Perfect. Next bullet point, please. So communication really kind of goes along with everything that Steve just said about being a safety resource, right? It's not just about answering phone calls or emails at all hours, but it's also about getting back to people, right? If people know that you are reachable, if they're more likely to call you. If they know that you don't know the answer, but will get back to them, they're more likely to call you and ask the questions, knowing that you're going to do whatever you need to do to either come up with the answer. They may not like the answer because it may be the harder choice of the two, but at least they know that you're going to get an honest, true, safe answer, and they're going to know that you're there to help them, help set whatever it is that they need up. And it really goes back to that safety resource. Something that we've worked very hard here at Hermanson is, before it used to be, safety was never called. We were only called when something bad happened. Well, I guess I'm going to the hospital. I better call safety. They better come see what's going on. And we've worked really hard to develop those relationships, communications. And now we're called out to, hey, we got to climb into this shaft. We don't know where to tie off. We don't know what type of equipment to use. Hey, can you come out? Can you walk this with us? To the point where we're, actually ordering equipment for them. We're there when it gets set up. We're there when they first use it to make sure everything goes smoothly before we hand it, completely over. So, really hit it. It's about being an asset, not a burden, and it's about being able to step on site, have those conversations. It's also about when you're walking the job sites, you're interacting with the crews. You're not just walking around with blinders on your eyes, only looking for the bad stuff. You're checking up on people, you're asking how their families are doing. You kind of get to know them on a individual basis. And that also helps bridge the gaps. And it also helps with having to have those hard conversations, when you have to approach somebody and be like, hey, there's really a better way to do this. I know you've been doing it for the past 20 years like this and you've never gotten hurt, but either standards have changed, equipment has changed, and this is kind of the new way to do it now. And those conversations are easier to have, and they are accepted easier by the people in the field because they know who you are, they know your intentions, and they know that you're here to help them and not just point out mistakes. I believe with that, we go to the next slide. All right, so boosting employee buy-in. kind of some of the things that we've all talked about, right? Listening to concerns. If it makes sense, implement them. If you can put the next 2 bullet points up, because they all kind of tie in together, please. Perfect. You know, it's allowing the employees to speak freely. If they know they can come to you, tell you something, and not get berated, not get written up, but have a general concern, they're likely to tell you, hey, this is what's going on, or hey, this is a better way. I thought of a better way that we can do something. Because, you know, it's not only it's not my way or the highway. It's not, well, safety said this, we have to do it this way. There are, you know, many smart people out in the field, and everybody has ideas, and it's about, you know, coming together and trying to find the best answer, the best situation, because not everybody knows everything. So having the ability to speak, listen, and giving them the environment to do so really help get their buy-in, because they feel like they have a part of it. They feel like they have skin in the game. And part of that is don't be afraid to change. Something that we went through a couple of years ago, we changed our pre-task plans. Personally, I thought they were fine. I thought they worked well. I thought if you know, obviously you have to use it correctly. I thought it did the job that it was supposed to do, but there was a lot of concerns in the field with the foreman about it, you know, potentially being, you know, just penciled in like the dry shack, left down in the basement while crews were up on, you know, different levels. They didn't necessarily have it on them with them. And so being able to hear those things and not be afraid of change, we said, okay, not a problem. You develop something that you think would fit our culture, our company. And they did. We had you know, a couple foremen together, along with, like, you know, one of the safety members. We used the safety committee. They came up with what they wanted to see, what type of pre-task plan. You know, they eventually formed, you know, kind of 2, one for the foreman to fill out, to kind of line out their crews. And they also developed an individual one where then that person would, wherever they were working, they would take it and then they would fill out their individual pre-task plan. And this was, I had actually no hand in creating this. This was all done by the foreman in the field that thought what we used to have wasn't adequate enough. And so that really kind of creates buy-in, because they made it. This is something that they wanted to do, and they created it and then they pushed it. So that's something I think, you know, is really powerful and can create a lot of buy-in, because you're giving them a voice. When they feel like they have a voice and they're heard, they're likely to get least resistance. Over to you, Steve.
Thanks, Desiree. This is all very useful information. So, you know, one of the things I touched on before was when you're out interviewing employees, is asking questions. And we ask a lot of questions. And again, that helps break the ice. In some cases, hopefully it's going to bring that down to a more personal level, and the employee is going to open up to you a little bit more. One thing that helped me realize how important asking a lot of questions and things like that was we actually had a CEO come on board several years ago. It's been quite a while. But prior to him coming on board, anytime the executives would be in town, it was that particular team is here, make sure everything's clean, practically salute them when they come by. They wouldn't even acknowledge you were there. And I obviously didn't care for that. The new CEO that came on board, he would actually come up to you, shake your hand, and actually start talking about you and your family. And I found out later that he used cue cards. And I was so impressed by that. I thought, you know what, I want to use or do something like that in the future if I'm in that position, and I have. So again, that all goes back to myself, my team, anybody else interviewing employees, asking a lot of questions and showing real interest in them, in their lives. One of the things too is always asking them, I try and get them to tell me how long they've been in the trade, tell me a little bit about their favorite part of the trade. Like I said, just digging deeper and deeper to try and get some good, honest feedback from them. Could we go to the next bullet point? Diverse safety committees. This is very, very important. it's a number of years back, we finally realized that, not only does OSHA require you to have a safety committee, but you need to have an effective safety committee if it's going to do any good. So you're spending time and money. We have guys coming in from the field. We're paying them to attend the safety committee. So we need to make sure it's very effective and worthwhile. So we did make sure we have very diverse safety committees throughout the country, anywhere from a apprentice on up to journeyman, foreman. And then one key is we will actually, if the manager wants to be in there, he can be in there, but we recommend he not sit at the table. He can sit over in the corner, he can sit off to the side. And we found that the people in the safety committee were more apt to be honest and open if they didn't have to look at the manager being right there. It sounds kind of crude, but it made a huge difference. People are naturally intimidated by management. So if we were able to kind of take them out of the picture a little bit, it really, really helped. So again, our safety committees started being a lot more productive, which was a good thing. The manager was there just to make comments if needed and help guide the conversation if he had to, but we rely on, say, a district safety person to actually create the topics and work through that safety committee. So that's worked out really well. This also helps create buy-in because you're getting people from every level of the trade looking at potential issues and helping make decisions that are valuable for the whole team. So that's all very good. Next bullet point. And don't rush the meetings. Everybody seems to be under time constraints these days, but to be effective, you can't be pushing to hurry up and get the meetings over with. I know I was talking to one of our safety directors the other day. He attended a meeting out on the East Coast, and he commented about how rushed the meeting was. They wanted to hurry up, get the guys in, check the box, talk about a couple things, and send everybody home. And that is, definitely not effective. So that's something we're working at continuously. But need to make sure that people that are willing to spend their time at these meetings walk away with something of value. And so again, that's something we feel is very, very important to our program. So. Jordan, next slide, please. Are we still good on time, Jordan?
We're just unmuting. We're a little long, so maybe this could be slightly quicker, but it's fantastic information. So at the same time, I don't want to.
Okay. All right. So let's we'll probably go through this a little. We'll step it up just a little bit here. So top issues facing construction industry: aging workforce, technology. I can only speak from experience. I am short term. I'm getting close to retirement age in the near future. So my issue now is trying to find replacements, and it's very difficult right now in the world as it is. So we are reaching out just about everywhere, trying to find qualified people that want to do this kind of work. A lot of experienced workers are unable or uninterested in using modern technology. They've completed a test for many years without having to use that technology. I was one of those in the beginning when I was out in the field. And of course, we've made a huge transition to using electronic devices and different software and programs, all that kind of thing, which of course is great. It's imperative that we educate and reinforce the use of the devices for training, weekly documentation, task-specific documents, etc. Most of our districts now have transitioned, of course, to iPads. I'm sure almost everybody has, but we're also trying to make that user-friendly, trying to put programs together that the foreman and field people can use easily. And if need be, we will actually go out and educate them out on the job site. Safety personnel may need to perform training. So I just talked about that. We do that periodically if needed. We do that in conjunction with the management in each district throughout the country. Turnover in workforce. You have an aging workforce that holds all the knowledge, but they think they're still 25 and are getting hurt. And I'm sure everybody out there has probably got a story to tell about that. You've got, I hate to use the word older, but you have more experienced people out there still lifting way too much, not asking for help because that's the way we used to do it back in the day. And so we have a lot of sprains and strains, those type of injuries. And those, of course, are very costly. And we're losing that employee for usually a decent amount of time. On the other hand, you got brand new people coming into trades. They've never done any of that type of work. So clearly that is a concern for us. So our obligation as employers to make sure we educate, they know what they're doing before they do it. And that's an ongoing battle with anybody and everybody out there. So, along with our THAs and weekly training, we're also performing person-to-person training with the new people coming on board, with the apprentices, to make sure, obviously, they don't get hurt. They know what they're doing. So that's a big goal for us. That goes right into mentoring. I'm a huge proponent of mentoring. Speaking of my experience, when I was in the field running work, I remember when I first started, I was on a job one time. I had the prints in my hand. I had a foreman come up and grab them out of my hand and tell me it wasn't my job. So I swore whenever I started running work, I was going to let that apprentice grab those drawings and learn from that. So I took that with me. And anytime I had a new person on that job site, I would give them about a week, see how they do. And then I started teaching them everything I knew, because that would free me up to go do something else. So that's worked out well for me personally. Obviously, we need to utilize foreman and lead men to help educate newer or less experienced employees and personnel. And we also team employees with tradespeople who are willing to share their knowledge. So that goes into the mentoring facet again. So with that, I'll transition over to Desiree.
Yeah, and real quickly, I'll talk about, safety versus, schedule and budget. A lot of times people think of it as butting heads. Well, I don't have time to do this. I'm behind on schedule. I'm over budget. I don't have the 5 minutes to stop and fill out your paperwork. Go. But one thing is, I don't think what people understand is, you take those 2 minutes to get the tools you need properly, right? So you're not trying to use a wrench when you really need a screwdriver. So therefore, you're not hitting yourself in the face with something. You take the time to set up your work site properly, so you're not tripping over things. And then when you do call, you have to go back and do rework, and that all plays into safety, right? So you're using the right tools, you're doing it right the first time, and you're producing quality work. And that in itself will help with budget and schedule. And kind of a quick example, we had a foreman who didn't think they had enough time to clear their work area out of the way, and they just stepped over, the pile of garbage, I think what it was. But he miscalculated, misstepped, ended up falling, tripping, and ended up with a bruised leg and limping for the next week and a half. So it's really, how much time did you save by not clearing out your workspace to have a safe environment to work in? We had a journeyman that was working with an apprentice, and they were putting in duct work with a duct jack. His apprentice went to go get something. He thought he could put the piece of ductwork in real quick, and ended up hitting something in the ceiling and knocked the piece of duct off the duct jacks. No one was hurt, but it damaged the piece of equipment. What did that 2 minutes of waiting for his apprentice to come back to help spot him really cost? It was a work stoppage, it was an incident report, it was a retraining. So safety shouldn't be the opposite of schedule and budget. It should be something that helps it along. Back to you, Steve.
Very good. All right, last slide, please. So how has technology changed construction safety? I think everybody would agree that digitizing everything has been a good thing. Although going back to what I talked about earlier, there was some educational element to that, a little bit of a learning curve for a lot of people. The newer kids, of course, coming into the trades, it's no big deal for them. They got this stuff figured out. In fact, a lot of times I'm asking them for help. if I run into any kind of issues. So luckily, they're more than willing to help the old guy out in my case. But anyway, one good thing is being able to track safety stats and trends. Trends, again, being highlighted there. Anytime I pull up reports, that's what I'm looking for. Do we have an issue that has happened consistently that we need to address? So that's a big value to me. We also have the ability to create graphs and charts, show company performance and what we need to work on. This is great whenever I'm doing meetings with management or supervision. Graphs and graphics in general are great for those kinds of things. It's a quick and dirty way to see what's happening out there. Again, the on-site inspections, in our case, using Certainty. It's worked out very well with our customized checklists and everything. Again, we're able to pull up a lot of information depending on what's been put in there. We also have created a checklist for action items. And so we are starting to use those heavily out on the job sites. If we see something that needs to be addressed, safety personnel are out there completing the action reports. And that way we have a digitized format that we can go back and use to make sure and ensure that everything was abated before we move on. So that's been great. And then we also do warning notices too, if need be. So those are a couple of ways that we use technology. Education options at your fingertip. Of course, online training is huge nowadays. It's really great because we can take a tablet or whatever we may have out on the job site and do training one-on-one with whoever needs that training. We're able to communicate with the field instantly. Everybody knows that. Phone calls, text, emails, instant access, which is great for us. And then let's see, digitized records, including training. Of course, document retention is huge with OSHA. Everybody knows OSHA says that if it wasn't documented, it never happened. So this is huge. And I've had some embarrassing situations where I have done audits with OSHA, or we had to respond to a potential citation and couldn't find a piece of paper back in the day that we needed to defend ourselves. So that's not good. So and then lastly, QR codes, which we're starting to develop that shows equipment inspections, training of our employees, et cetera. So that's another option that we're really starting to use heavily, which is great. So Desiree, I don't know if you have any other comments to that.
No, I think you wrapped it up, and I think for the interest of time, we'll hand it back over to Jordan.
Yep.
Great, thank you both. Yeah, it's just a wealth of information, and getting those hard-learned lessons is not easy, right? There's a lot kind of published and written, but really learning those details from the ground is just outstanding. I wanted to give a little bit of information as the technology partner in these projects. First of all, we love these projects. They're very practical. It is exactly the kind of thing we like to do, right? To help implement a vision that has, a safety improvement component to it, plus a business improvement component. So I'll be really quick because I do want to leave time for some questions, but I want to run through just that technology piece and things to look for, ways that technology can be useful. So a little bit about us. We are an audit and inspection platform, right? A management solution for being able to deploy audits, inspections anywhere at any time on essentially any device. So that helps you identify and resolve anything you discover in the field and report on it accurately, really trying to collect the information Steve and Desiree spoke about and getting it into the right people's hands. Really quickly, we try to work the way you already work. So devices, using a browser, Excel if needed. This checklist approach is critical. Being able to define what it is your process is and how you're going to implement it. This is how we do JSAs. This is what our toolbox talks look like. I think it was Steve who even mentioned that having a standard form that is specialized by the trade is handy. All things that you want your technology to help, and all things we have spent a great deal of time trying to figure out. We work in a lot of parts of the world, just to let you know. We do spend a lot of time in construction, but we do a lot of work across multiple other sectors. And just a quick little slide of the kinds of folks we work with. A little bit of a vanity slide, I suppose, but the idea that we work up and down the scale, right? From the US government to multinational oil companies to pharma to construction to some very localized groups. One of the keys we find is being able to quickly deploy, right? Having those devices so everything works with what you already have, right? That phone in your pocket should be able to do it. If I'm on a brand new project and I'm underground and there's no Wi-Fi, that can't stop me, right? I need to be able to go, whether I'm offline, I'm online. It needs to go to all of my people at all the time. And it goes to reducing those barriers that both Steve and Desiree spoke of, right? Has to be easy, has to be helpful. Again, you need it to be right for you, right? Taking anybody's standard form and using it is only going to be so helpful. Every business has their own language, their own nuance, the things that are important to them. And as you grow, you're going to want to change. Like one of my favorite bits was around the communication and getting feedback from your team. This is a way that group of foremen can easily create the perfect form or inspection for their team. You know, as the technology gets better and better, adding photos, markups, documents, all happens in real time. You can imagine trying to type it all out. In fact, I did a lot of that, typing up deficiencies and tracking and issues. Photos just make it instantly clear, right? In real time, exactly what's happening. The ability to schedule, right? You want that vision, you want certain things to happen on time. I recall also receiving stacks and stacks of paper that supposedly were filled out at various days, and they just weren't. They were all done on, you know, one day before I arrived to site. But being able to schedule by site, by role, by task, by project, easily done. This is probably the key. Collecting that information easily and simply is important, but being able to understand what it says, right? And being able to view it the right way. So this is a dashboard for a site supervisor. Here is a custom report for a regional manager. Here's a live interactive business intelligence tool that we can see everything in our business and drill into little details, right? I want to know how PPE is doing across an entire portfolio of projects. No problem. Right? You want to be able to get to that really quickly. I think it was also Steve who mentioned corrective actions, right? So you go through and you have these very clever designed reports and processes. You follow through. How do you follow up, right? If I discover something that's not quite right, I want to make sure that that gets into the right hands and I can follow through and make sure that that's completed. One of the things we've built recently, which is very nice, is I can create that manually. I'm walking by, I'm doing an assessment, I see something on site that needs to be corrected. We can also automate it, right? Just by going through a toolbox talk, if somebody suggests there's a risk or the answer is no, we can automatically create something to be followed up at a later date. And communication, right? Like a lot of these things, you have a group of people dispersed, multiple projects, multiple teams, getting that information to flow smoothly. And whether that is completed reports automatically emailed to your inbox, stored on site, or notifications and actions, it's critical to be able to communicate quickly across all of your groups. And scale, right? Scale is almost always a challenge. A single site with one good foreman and a site super can usually collect the information. Once that gets to greater scale, you really want some tools to help capture that information and get it into one place. These two, I like this title. It's a little bit funny, secure and flexible. Those often are kind of competing, but in the construction industry, that's required, right? It has to be secure and it has to be flexible. We have a lot of sub-trades. We have a lot of, short-term employees. We need single access to this group of people for one area for a week. And you have to be able to allow that to happen if you want to capture information. Capturing details in multiple languages. Sometimes that's country dependent, sometimes that's just your crew. Like I remember working with crews that spoke multiple languages. The whole crew spoke a different language, but being able to capture information in any language and report on it is key. And then some really nice details around big picture, things like single sign-on, so you can access the tool quickly. Oh, I see I'm running out of time. I'm going to stop with this. There's great information on the website. Please dig into it, have a look. But I do want to take just the last 2 minutes to capture any questions and turn things back to Samantha.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. I just want a quick reminder to everybody that's still on the call here. This webinar is being recorded, so if you do have to hop off, but you did have questions that you wanted answered, make sure that you get them into the GoToWebinar console, and it'll be on the recording that we send out to everyone in a few days. So we do have a few questions coming in here. How does the app compare to the web browser for ease of use? Sometimes with these softwares, the apps just aren't comparable with the browser version.
Yeah, ours is identical, right? Everything you can do on the data collection side from the app is exactly what happens on the web browser.
Perfect. Another question came in. How do you trend the verbiage on the app? Is AI used or is it trended manually?
Might want a little more detail, but I might ask my colleague Hewitt, who's with us, to pop in on that one. But I would need a little more clarity on exactly what they mean by trending the language.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it really depends on how you set up your forms, your checklists. And the key there is keep it simple and make the answers the same for everybody so that you can trend it.
Oh, I see.
Perfect. Good to know.
Thanks, Hewitt.
Next question. Sorry, go ahead.
Just thanking Hewitt. Yep, I misunderstood the question.
Perfect. How long does it normally take to see results after implementing a formal safety program?
I would probably ask Desiree and Steve to comment on that, what they have personally seen.
So they say, if you're trying to change your safety culture, 7 years. You see, and that's probably like all package complete. For me here at Harmison, we've made leaps and bounds in the past, 3 years. But it depends on really your buy-in from the top and how well you're supported, because you could have all good intentions, but if you can't get your exec team to buy in, if you can't get your exec team to support you, you essentially have no muscle with your safety program. And that's something that's very, very important.
Yeah, if I could real quick. Our safety program is always in transition. And since we've had a formal safety program, we've seen results get better every year. So you could job to job have a quick indicator that things are going well, but fully implemented and changes are different for probably every company, every program, and it takes time. And it's all about creating that good culture out there where everybody believes and everybody's bought into that. So in reality, it takes time, quite a bit of time.
And patience.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Our next
patience.
question is, can somebody comment on improving safety performance of subcontractors or contractors visiting a facility?
I can speak to that real quick, especially in regards to subcontractors. So when we hire subcontractors, part of the contractual obligation for them is to actually follow all of our policies and safe work procedures. So we get that buy-in right at the top. In fact, some of our districts actually offer monetary incentives to our subcontractors to get them on board too. So they're subject to every possible thing that our normal tradespeople will do. Our subs are also accountable for that. So that means they could be issued warning violations and everything along that lines. So that's how we get our subcontractors up to speed.
Yeah, and 2 seconds for me, we're traditional subcontractor, and so we kind of treat our subs as the general treats us, right? We expect them to adhere to our standards, our policies. Like we have a certain ladder policy that we expect them to use. It's also, we develop the relationship with our counterparts, both up and down the chain, with the general and with our subcontractors. So when we do have, it's a conversation with their safety versus a hammer.
Excellent. Well, I just want to thank everybody for your time today. It was such great information and our audience seemed to love it. So thank you so much for taking the time to give us your expertise. Of course, I want to thank Certainty Software for allowing us to put on this presentation today. And a reminder, we will be sending out a recording to everyone in a few days along with the slide decks. If you had any other questions that come in after, I will send them over to the Certainty Software team as well as Desiree and Steve to make sure that you get those questions answered. So on behalf of Safeopedia, I want to thank everybody for attending today's webinar. I want to thank all of the dedicated safety professionals for the great work they do on a daily basis. So thanks again, take care, stay safe, and remember, inspect, identify, report, and resolve. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye,
Bye.
bye, everybody.